in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Can I get a roll call, please?
Jared Beatrice.
Here.
Ray Egbert.
Here.
Carol Hinkle.
Here.
Rob McCallan.
Here.
Andrew Saunders.
Here.
Anna Shin.
Here.
Laura Simon.
Here.
2 absent.
Can we stand for the flag salute?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off my superintendent's report this evening with a recognition that this week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and today is being recognized as National Teacher Day. And while this week is set aside specifically for teachers, I want to inform the board that this week there are a whole bunch of activities sponsored by the HSA for the school staff. Lots of food in each one of the buildings and treats and surprises for each one of the teachers. But truly to recognize that, yes, the teachers, and this is Teacher Appreciation Week and we recognize teachers, but it really does take a village to raise or educate, I should say, a child. So in recognition of the efforts of all of our staff, the teachers, the nurses, the school counselors, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, administrators, custodians, secretarial staff was recognized last week for Administrative Assistance Day. I know paraprofessionals were recognized in the buildings a few weeks ago. So I just want to let the board know that this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I want to thank everyone on behalf of the board for everything they do to make Readington great. So I wrote to the teachers earlier this week, and I wanted to just read a little piece of what I wrote. I said, while this week is set aside as a special celebration for those of us in education, remember that each and every day and I'm sure the board appreciates all you do in the classrooms, on the school bus, and on the athletic fields. So thank you for continuing to make a difference in the lives of kids. So thank you, everybody, for everything that you do. Secondly, I have prepared a presentation for the Board of Education in regard to the administrative team's investigation into later school starting times. This is a topic that came up previously at one of our board meetings. So I have a few slides just to show some of the research that we've come up with, and grab the clicker. So as the presentation warms up, and the projector turns on. So like I said, this is something that came up a couple of months ago by the Board of Education. It's been discussed among the state and even around the country as to the need for adolescents in particular to spend a little bit of extra time sleeping. So what we did is the administration took a look at some of the research that's out there, and we had a discussion about this. So really, let's come back to the why. So why would we look into something like this? So first, one, there have been discussions around the county and around the state about a child's need to sleep, particularly in the middle school and the high school, those adolescent years. The state of New Jersey, I shared with the board, and it's been appearing in the newspaper that the state has proposed a bill, and that bill will select 5 high schools around the state to pilot a program where perhaps they're going to move to a later school starting time, and they're going to do a 4 years worth of research and collect the data about adolescents and their sleep and academic success. And then this was something that we've discussed. So the administrative team collected some information and had a discussion. So I'll present to you the research. There's a lot of research that really does support the later school the later school starting times, and then there's some research that even questions, is later school starting times enough? So as you can see here, there's a lot of research, or there's a lot of articles that have been published in newspapers by the CDC, and an article that was published by the American Academy of Pediatrics that really supports later school start times. One of which was even came from NJPSA. In a recent article, Princeton High School has moved their high school starting time to a little bit later, about an hour later, and they're already noticing, at least anecdotally in the article, some positive changes. You'll see that 83% of middle schools, 93% of high schools start before 8:30 a.m., suggesting that adolescents don't get enough sleep, and there needs to be a focus on that, the amount of sleep for adolescents. And particularly, the American Academy of Pediatrics says that insufficient sleep does cause several health issues, and it's a concern across the country. Delaying school start times is certainly a step in the right direction. Similarly, there's been some research that questions the later school start times. So while there's a lot of research that supports later school starting times, I think I would summarize this slide to say that later school start times is certainly something that's part of the solution. But what we've come to learn by some of this research is that while there are all of these positives, that the research indicates that starting school a little bit later is not the sole solution, that this has to work hand in hand with other lifestyle changes in adolescence. Things like technology came up in several of the articles that we read, students spending some time, before they go to bed with a screen in front of them, which often can keep a child awake for a while and make it difficult to fall asleep. One of the articles talked about the logistics in later school start times also. And the final one, the American Academy of Pediatrics, while they certainly support later school start times, you have to read the article really carefully because they also say that later school start times alone is not enough to provide an adolescent with enough of sleep. So we made a list of pros and cons. We talked about how really a later start time would match an adolescent's circadian rhythm. It gives them an opportunity for a longer night's sleep. Some of the research suggested that fewer students are late to school, which is great, and that the research suggests that there's been a positive impact on student achievement, all great things. Some of the potential cons is that the research suggests that we could make the shift, but we may not get the intended results, right? This has to work hand in hand with some other lifestyle changes. Delaying school start times does not completely solve the issue as tired teens. They want to sleep and they want to sleep in. And sometimes they often go to bed really late just because that's the way their sleep pattern is. And then the solution doesn't necessarily address the concerns around technology. So for us, at least in Reddington, we have to think about, does moving school start times prepare students for high school, right? Because the high school starts around 7:30 in the morning. In addition, there's some logistical hurdles that we need to consider. Things like working parent schedules or just family schedules that would create a large disruption to our 1,500 students. Sports and extracurricular activities and clubs after school. Think about it this way, we're not going to shorten the day. If school starts an hour later, that means that clubs and sports are going to occur an hour later also. This is a really large logistical hurdle for several reasons. One, students are going to get home later, which after homework, dinner, family time, they may actually be going to bed a little bit later than anticipated if school was ending early. Also, if we're the only district in the region that's moved our start times to later, we may have some conflict with sports schedules, right? We might have to wait for teams. Teams might have to wait for us to get to their site. So there might be a little bit of a mismatch there too. After school help and resources. So sometimes teachers, libraries, they're open a little bit later to help kids. Again, delaying school start times makes a longer school day, means after school offerings may not be available, or maybe they need to shift before school. So if a teacher is available for extra help before school instead of after school, then that sort of defeats the purpose because children are coming in early anyway to maybe get extra help or do a club or activity or extracurricular. We certainly have to consider the teacher's schedule and any contractual impacts that may happen. Transportation, our transportation coordinator was in the meeting and talked about some of the logistics with transportation. Would we want to keep our two-tier busing? And we would have to consider, do we want to flip-flop the primary building and then Hollenbrook as well as the middle school and flip their schedules, starting younger students earlier, older students and adolescents a little bit later? It's something that we would need to figure out. Middle school siblings sometimes babysit or watch younger siblings. So if their school day starts later, they're getting home later, that could create a babysitting challenge. And early dismissal on professional development days. Oftentimes, we have an outside presenter come in. We try to coordinate the schedules between all of the buildings to have groups of teachers together that are cross buildings, and there could be an impact on professional development days. So there are some logistical things that we'd have to consider, certainly. So the recommendations moving forward. So first, let's look further into some of the research. So I cited the article from the American Academy of Pediatrics, but a lot of the research that we found initially was anecdotal or newspaper research, case studies, if you will, of how this is going around the country. There is some empirical research, some research-based studies out there by educators and psychologists that collects a lot of really good data, which would be worth looking into if we're going to pursue the conversation further. Formulate a more concrete vision. So not just us as the Board of Education, but getting parents, students, teachers involved in this conversation and say, okay, so what is it that we want from Readington? If we're going to move forward with this conversation, how do we want to move forward? Are we going to switch the start times of the primary buildings in the middle school in Hollenbrook? Or do we want all buildings to be on the same schedule? Those are some details that we still would need to work out. Have the conversation be part of the strategic plan. We're going to embark on strategic planning next year. I think it'd be a great idea to have this be part of the conversation if we want to pursue this. Have the conversation and coordination around the region, right? Certainly somebody's got to lead the charge on something like this, but we want to make sure that because we are a regionalized school district, that we want to have the conversation with the districts around us. And then finally, we could always wait for results to come from the Department of Education pilot program. Like I said, there's a bill on the floor to determine pilots happening in high schools around the state. Perhaps we want to allow the DOE to pilot the study, collect some data, develop a report. I know it's 4 years out, which is a long time to wait, but we could get some more information from them also. I included some references. Again, I guess I would summarize, sorry, I'll go back one slide. My recommendations is, if we're going to continue this conversation, we have to involve more people than certainly the board, and perhaps strategic planning would be the place to do it if we want to pursue something like this. And this is something that would definitely take time to implement if we're going to do it. There are some references attached if you want to look at any one of the articles, and I want to thank the board and thank you for your time. I'll take any questions.
I guess it's more of a comment. Wasn't there some research about schools that had tried it and then went back? I would be interested in the reasoning for that as we're looking at details.
Let me look and see. Not that we found. So each one of the administrators kind of poked around and looked for articles.
Okay.
Not that we saw, right, Mr. Nigro? I don't recall seeing anything like that, but we'll dig a little bit further and see if schools went back. We also have to remember too, Mr. Nigro and I have talked about this. We even have sort of a little bit of a case study here in Readington because Hollenbrook School was once a really later school, and when we went to two-tiered busing, they're now an earlier school. We looked, Mr. Nigro really dug to look at some of the academic and achievement data to see if there was a change when we went from later to earlier. That was around the same time that we switched from NJASC to Park, so it was hard to really see what the difference was in a year. But, I wasn't here at the time, but I'd be curious to see if there really was an impact at the time of moving from doing the opposite, right? Being a late school and starting an earlier school, being an earlier school. And I don't know, it's hard to tell what the impact is on academics because we switched over to the Park assessment at the time. Yeah, Jared.
I wasn't on the board before when they made that switch from the later time to the earlier time, but was there like community pushback at that prospect? I know it was consolidating busing. Was there?
Not regarding the times, it was more of just joining the age groups together. That's where the focus was.
Right, because it's kind of doing the opposite thing, not as drastically, but
Yeah.
I mean, ideally it'd be great if we had, 20 parents here that could like offer us opinions, but we don't have that, because then you'd have a better feel if it was something that people, you can do this data, which is great, and you can always find things to and for and against, but that it'd be great to know if there was like a group of, parents that could express some, yay or nay on it, which would help motivate, I think motivate the board to be, look to push these kinds of things. I guess that was more of a comment, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, I haven't heard anything, right? So this was something that came up in a Board of Ed meeting, and certainly there's been some press in the papers about this, which I think is the genesis for at least our conversation and at least proposing that if we're going to take a look at this, certainly we want to involve the parents, I would say, and the teachers. I mean, I think there's a lot of stakeholders that we should talk to, and I think that we should gather, more folks in the room. And I think that we're going to have a perfect opportunity as we talked about strategic planning next year. Not that this would necessarily be a big goal, but perhaps this is an action step to look into further within the strategic plan to see if this aligns with what our district vision is, right? That's what it's all about. If we're going to make a significant change like this, I don't know if we should make it because there's been a lot of press and a discussion about it in the papers, but rather because this is something that Readington wants to do because it fulfills something that we believe is a district. So if we believe that this fulfills something as a district, then that's the important conversation. And that'll happen as we start to unravel our strategic plan next year. Other questions or thoughts?
I just have one more comment.
Sure.
That if the high school isn't doing it, then it would really
Yeah.
be the,
And we can't make them do things, can we?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Mhm. No. So this was my report to the board. As promised, I wanted to get back to you in regard to this. If anything else comes up, certainly let me know. That concludes my superintendent's report.
Did you want to talk about graduation?
Oh, yes. Graduation. Reminder, graduation is on June 20th, which the way the calendar falls this year, it's a Thursday, and it's our last full day of school. The impact there is graduation being at 4:00. So the impact is for the 8th grade staff and for the students to get over to the high school at that time. And in further discussions, even with Mrs. Moffett, not only staff, administration, and students, but also families, right? If you have let's say a 3rd grade child and an 8th grade child that's graduating, as a parent, you have to go pick up your, 3rd grade child from whatever elementary school they attend and then head over to graduation, pick up your 8th grader and then head over to graduation. One of the proposals would be to make the second to last day of school, June 20th, an early dismissal day. It's not a planned early dismissal day as it is right now, and we've revised and talked about the calendar so much this year that I would hate to make another revision, but I'd like the board to consider revising the calendar one more time, and I'm open to thoughts about revising the calendar and making it a half day, the day before the last day of school, really for graduation. Any thoughts that you have, throw them out there.
Just what I had mentioned before. I think it may be easier on the parents who have the younger siblings.
Yeah.
Because some of those buses, I see them coming back to the lot at 4:15.
Yeah.
So everybody would end up being parent pickup,
Mhm.
and it would just cause a lot of havoc on the parents.
Initially, when I thought about it and didn't necessarily truthfully want to make it a half day to revise the calendar, I thought about 8th graders impacting the entire district, but really it does impact the entire district because there are younger siblings that are going to want to go to graduation. So this might make it more convenient. Jared?
Do we have data on ballpark, how many families or kids are in that situation?
I don't have it on me right now. no.
Because to me, it's just sometimes you might be helping 100 kids, but then you're negatively affecting 400 families that have to make arrangements to get their kids from a half day. Because I know half days can be kind of hectic for parents that work. They're actually, I know I hear a lot say like they like half days, the kids do, but then sometimes the parents. So I didn't know if it's say if 50 kids would get that, maybe the
Yeah.
parents would get them early dismissals or something versus affecting the other majority.
Yeah.
But we don't have like data on that, like in our system, like this family has a
So
3rd
many
grader, a
siblings.
5th grader, an 8th grader.
We can find that out. I can't tell you right now how many it is, but I'm sure we can find out.
Just helps decision making.
Yeah. No, I know. Either way, if we keep it a full day, parents are going to soon realize that it's a challenge to get to graduation on time. If we make it a half day, either way, we're going to have, it's what's best here in this situation. Either way, it sounds like we might have some folks that would disagree with whatever our final decision is. It's just a matter of sticking to our guns.
If I remember correctly, the last 2 years, the last 2 days of school have been early dismissal.
Yeah, so this is the only year that it's not because we planned for it next year to have the last 2 days be early dismissals. Kind of, I didn't know that this was coming, but recognizing now that graduation could happen either the last day or the second to last day, we have those 2 days now being early dismissal, but they're planned early dismissals next year. It was unplanned this year. So being proactive, we fixed it for next year, but
I would support a half a day
Okay.
on graduation day.
Okay.
If you think about it, towards the end of the school year or on a Friday or before a holiday,
Mhm.
the traffic on Reddington Road for both schools
Yeah.
can be pretty horrific. You
Sure.
don't want to have to add that stress onto the parents who are trying to run from school to school as well.
Sure.
So.
All right. Any other thoughts? Jared, let me see if I can answer that question
I
for
mean,
you.
everybody
and I
likes
can-
half day, but the
Yeah.
parents that are running around messing their day up, especially because it's one thing if you planned it the whole year and said this is the day, but then in May, you turn around and say, all right, next month,
Yeah, I get it.
we're changing it.
Okay. If I have any updates, I'll email the board with any other information. But keep an eye out maybe if there's a calendar change. That's everything.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're now open to the public, limited to action items on the agenda. You have to come up. Even though we know who you are.
Right, it's too high, so it doesn't matter.
That's okay.
I was just gonna weigh in on the half-day. Parent pickup is a problem on good days. Parents will, 8th graders will come and pick up every student probably early that day and sign them out, so they could pick up their siblings. So it'll be a traffic issue here, and there is one anyway. If parents are used to half-days, they don't really look at the calendar. Think about it. Nobody looks at the calendar until the day happens. Yeah, because I've been here forever. Nobody looks at the calendar until the week ahead and they go, oh no, I need babysitter or whatever. So I think the half day is a great idea, only because traffic will be backed up to, you might be a policeman then. Just to let you know, it could be a problem. How many kids are graduating?
About 170.
170. And there is data, and you have this, if there's a sibling in either the elementary schools and kids that are in 8th grade. So you can see how many kids that would impact at both those schools.
Yeah.
So that's my way. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Not hearing any. We didn't have any correspondence since our last meeting. Administrative reports. For the minutes, can I get a motion to adopt 2.01 to 2.02?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on the minutes?
Yes, I do. For 2.01, and the last, there was 2 abstentions. I believe those should have been no's. It would have affected 3.03.
All right, anyone else? Okay, can I get a roll call, please?
Jared Beatrice,
Abstain?
Ray Egbert,
Yes.
Carol Hample,
Yes?
Robin McCallum,
Yes.
Andrew Saunders,
Abstain.
Anna Shin,
Yes.
Laura Simon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Tom?
Tom?
You forgot about Tom.
Tom. Wall, sorry.
Since you called me, yes.
Finance and facilities. Can I get a motion to adopt 3.01 to 3.12?
So moved.
Second.
We did not have a meeting. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda items?
I had one question.
Hmm?
A lot of these are, I guess, just renewal type things from the year before as far as signers and different accounts and all that stuff. Are they the same or is that a different per year? Like a lot of, I see like these different things, like authorizations for different accounts and who can sign
Those are all standard.
every year.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Jared Beatrice,
Yes.
Ray Egbert,
Yes.
Carol Hample,
Yes?
Rob McEwen,
Yes.
Andrew Saunders,
Yes.
Thomas Wallace,
Yes.
Anna Shin,
Yes.
Laura Simon,
Yes.
passes.
Education technology. Can I get a motion to adopt 4.01 to 4.06?
So moved.
Second.
We had a committee report.
Yes, we did. We discussed summer enrichment, the program, and the courses, I apologize. The catalog is out and posted for registration to begin. Summer Teachers Academy, there are 27 courses being offered as of now. The registration and catalog will be finished soon. We discussed a field trip, excuse me, to the Tenement Museum in New York. The committee recommends it for approval. 7th grade honors program will attend. It coincides with the book that they're reading, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. They'll also be going to a deli for lunch that's part of the book. And the ratio of chaperones to students will be less than 10-1 as of right now. Future Ready, next meeting is May 8th. New Jersey School Performance Report will be linked on the website under the curriculum page. We're looking into the usage of the Parent Institute on the district's homepage website. It's a paid program. There have been very few hits on it, and we're just going to review to see what the usage is. And as Dr. Hart said before, it is Teachers Appreciation and is also Nurses Appreciation as well. And we just discussed how to say thank you to all of you. So this is one of the ways. Some books that are up for approval, Grenade and Code of Honor, are by an author who is existing in our district. It would be in the book room and used as an author study. The books are for middle school boys, and the committee recommends them for approval. And SEL Parent Night, there were about 20 people who attended, and the reflection sheets were positive and encouraging of more. Our next meeting is June 10th at 8:30.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes or the agenda items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Jared Beatrice,
Yes.
Ray Egbert,
Yes.
Carol Hample,
Yes?
Rob McEwen,
Yes.
Andrew Saunders,
Yes.
Thomas Wallace,
Yes.
Anna Shin,
Yes.
Laura Simon,
Yes.
passes.
Personnel. Can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 to 5.20?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments on the agenda items? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Jared Beatrice,
Yes.
Ray Egbert,
Yes.
Carol Hample,
Yes?
Rob McEwen,
Yes.
Andrew Saunders,
Yes.
Thomas Wallace,
Yes.
Anna Shin,
Yes.
Laura Simon,
Yes.
passes.
Communication, there are no items. Unfinished business. We have Memorial Day discussion. Eric Swirling is not here. Has anyone considered wanting to set up a table for Memorial Day for the board?
I still cannot.
Maybe something will happen after Eric gets back. I'm not sure. All right. Is there anything else that you want to bring up under unfinished business? All right, moving along. New business from the board. Anyone? We are now open to the public. Anything on or off the agenda? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Tom? Second?
Second.
Can I get a roll call?
Jared Beatrice,
Yes.
Ray Egbert.
Yes.
Carol Hample,
Yes.
Ron McKalen,
Yes.
Andrew Saunders,
Yes.
Thomas Wallace,
Yes.
Anna Shin,
Yes.
Laura Simon.
Yes. 7:30.
Wow.